Friends, today we will learn about Amelia Earhart and get to make our very own paper airplanes. You'll listen to a story that's read by the author of the book and watch a quick science video on how to make a paper airplane and how they fly. Then you are going to get a chance to fly your paper airplanes and see how far they can go. And you can measure them with a tape measure. At the end of the video, I have a quick way of showing you how to just do it with your feet if you don't have a tape measure. All right. Have a great day today, and I hope the weather's nice so you can get outside to fly those airplanes.
Around. This is I'm Amelia Earhart by myself and Chris Eliopoulos. Begins, I am Amelia Earhart. It says, when I was little, people told me that girls should wear dresses and play with dolls. They said we shouldn't have unladylike adventures. I did not agree. And it said, in fact, when I was 7 years old, my sister and I decided to build our own roller coaster in our backyard. We placed 2 planks of wood up against the side of our tool shedding. Her sister says, Grandma's not going to like this. The cab was a wooden packing crate with roller skate wheels attached to the bottom. We greased the wood with lard so we would move super fast. And he says, Amelia, are you sure this is a good idea? And she says, this isn't a good idea. It's the best idea. Of course, I got to ride first. This was my moment. In 3, 2, 1, I still remember the wind in my face. My stomach seemed to sink. I was flying. Grandmother says, Amelia Earhart, take it apart this instant. She says the crash was loud and noisy and messy. It certainly wasn't ladylike, but it was awesome. And she says, that's so awesome. It wasn't the last time I would fly. She says, as I got older, I went to many air shows. When I was 23 years old, but still a kid at heart, my dad took me to meet Frank Hawks, a man who would eventually set many of his own flight records. You ready, he says? I'm ready. For $10, Hawks agreed to take me on my very first flight. For 10 minutes, we flew through the sky and out over the Pacific Ocean. By the time I was 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew one thing. I had to fly. To save from my flying lessons, I worked as a truck driver, which wasn't ladylike either. Move it, Mac, she says. She also worked as a stenographer, which is just a fancy schmancy word for someone who writes down what people say, blah, 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 blah. And then she even worked as a photographer. Say snook. 6 months after I learned to fly, I brought a bright yellow used biplane that I named Canary. Canary is a cool name for a plane, right? And she says, this is my instructor, a woman named Netta Snook. That's her real name. But here's my secret, Amelia Earhart says. I wasn't a natural. I wasn't the best pilot. I just worked harder than anyone else. That's enough flying for today, her instructor says. And she says, no, I can do better. One more time around. Most important, like that day on the roller coaster, I dared to do what so many others said couldn't be done. And a reporter, he says, a girl flying across the Atlantic? Amelia, you sure this is a good idea? This isn't a good idea. This is the best idea. I became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean and the first woman to fly by myself across the Atlantic. Back then, people took boats to get to Europe, sailing for weeks. Planes were still a new thing. In fact, on the day I took off, one magazine ran an article that said women would never be able to fly that far. But I did, she says. To do it, I had to fly for 14 hours and 56 minutes with no rest, no break. Sometimes the sun was so blinding I could barely see where I was going. And she also says, this is awesome. In the process, I also broke the record for crossing the ocean in the shortest time, doing it faster than any man or woman ever. Then I broke an altitude record, which is just a fancy schmancy way of saying I went higher than anyone else. How high did I go? About 12 Empire State Buildings straight up, at a time when no woman had ever gone that high. In my life, I took many flights. Every single time, there was someone who said I wouldn't be able to do it. Never let anyone stop you. Whatever your dream is, chase it. Work hard for it. You will find it. It is the best lesson that I can give you. I am Amelia Earhart. I know no bounds. And I hope you'll remember that the greatest flight you'll ever take is the one no one has tried before. To all the kids watching, we didn't make this story up. She's real. This is her as a girl with Netta Snook, with her biplane, with Canary. This is it. The real thing. Again, this is not some magical purple dragon. This is the real hero. This is the real stuff. I hope you enjoyed story time with me. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, Squeaks and I are making paper airplanes. We're trying to make different kinds and see how high they fly. You want to join us? Just grab some paper and we'll make one together. Let's start by folding the paper in half, kind of like a hot dog bun. Then unfold it again and lay it flat. Now, fold down the top two corners. Try to line up each corner so that it reaches all the way to the fold in the middle. Now stop and take a look. So far, you should have a piece of paper that looks like a square at the bottom with two triangles on top. If that's what yours looks like, then let's keep going. Find the outer corner of each triangle and fold the triangle over so that corner touches the middle fold too. Now, close up your paper and flip it over. Fold down each side, just about halfway, to make wings. And you've got a paper airplane. Let's see how it does. That was pretty good, but how does a paper airplane fly? Well, it's all about forces. And in fact, the forces that help paper airplanes glide are the same ones that keep a real airplane flying high in the sky. A force is something that pushes or pulls on something else. And there are a couple of different forces that act on your paper airplane to make it fly. First, you need a force that creates forward movement. That kind of force is called thrust. In real airplanes, thrust is created by engines, which make the jet move forward by taking in a bunch of air and then pushing it out the back really fast. But our airplane is just made out of paper, no engines. So where are you going to get the thrust? That's right, from you. When you throw a paper airplane, you're providing the thrust by pushing the plane forward. After that initial push, your plane doesn't get any more thrust. It just glides, which is one of the reasons that it eventually falls to the ground. We don't just want our plane to go forward. We want it to float on the air. So we need another force to get our airplane flying high. This one's called lift, and it comes from the shape of the plane. Try making an unfolded piece of paper fly. It's hard. That's because the paper needs sturdy wings in order to fly. But when your airplane's wings slice through the air, they create lift. As your plane moves, the wings push air out of the way. But the air has to go somewhere, so it quickly gets out of the way by moving up and over the wing. And the faster that air moves over the wing, the less time it has to push down on it. So the air above the wing is pushing on the plane less than the air below it. This force makes the plane go up. A big airplane needs more lift to get off the ground than a small airplane. That's why bigger planes need bigger wings. Now, the plane that you and I made doesn't have a whole lot of lift because the wings are so thin. So in order to fly, this airplane needs a whole lot of thrust, which means you need to throw it hard.
Now that you've measured the space that your airplane has flown, you're going to mark each time and how far. So you can use a tape measure, a ruler if you have one, or you can even use your feet. At the end of this video, I have a quick video of how I did that. And you're just going to double click in the text boxes and write how far. If you're doing inches, you could type out the word, or you could just do an abbreviation. That's fine. And you may see that your plane goes further each time. You may have had a crash and maybe now your plane doesn't fly very well. So just take note on the differences each time that you fly your airplane. I hope you had a good time today. And if you don't have a tape measure, continue watching.